So, in the last, I would say, 4 years, ending in 2017, I had the crazy idea to work on a PhD on Lean. I thought, well, because I work for Toyota, it will be relatively easy to combine those two things. Completely wrong, so I don't advise to anybody to do anything like this. But I'm very glad that it's finished and that I can share some of it with you. In the past years, the tag time is every 2 years I come to this group to present. So I had already, now of course the tag time has changed a bit because there was no summit, I think, in 2016. So now we are in 19, but anyway, it's the fourth time. I always ask who saw the 3 previous times in the group. Probably not so many people, except the organizers. So yeah, okay, great. For the other ones, you can, if you are really not totally desperate after the presentation of today, you can even go to internet and look at the previous ones. But I don't have huge hopes for that, so I'll try to summarize today. But still, the first one was really talking about the Toyota way in IT and why Toyota IT is different. Not different from your organizations, because you're doing great things, but different to most other IT organizations at that time. And then I talked about one-piece flow and DevOps already once, but we were not very advanced ourselves in the realization of that. It's a bit better now. And then last time I talked about the Hoshin for IT and the small IT system that we did as part of my PhD to support the Hoshin creation in the company. So this time I will talk about, that's why I answered Lean, because I have really worked on, all is a big word, but most of the concepts of Lean. And I must say, every time that I went to a European production Kaizen meeting in one of our factories, I heard a new Japanese term that I had never heard before. So I said, what is that? Where can we put it? And so on. So in my home, I took a number of Post-its and I tried to organize the concept, because I said it's impossible. If I wanted to explain Lean to another company who has not started to do anything, it would be totally impossible with that number of concepts. Then I tried to organize the concepts. But I work in IT, but this works very well manually, because there's no IT tool that puts the boxes exactly at the right place. It's a nightmare. And then finally, we created what I call the ontology of Lean. And of course, again, we can discuss forever, because after this, I continued to hear a number of terms that are not there. So there should be Kaizen, and that's the problem of a PhD, is you publish it and that's it. So the Kaizen can be only future articles and so on. But I'm not so young anymore, so some people will need to take over this ontology and make it live, which is my wish. And also put new applications, because the other reason why I did this, my PhD is not so much about application to IT, but how can you apply these concepts to any possible thing? Now, it's enough to look at a bookshelf with Lean books to see that there's Lean for many, many things today. You have even the Lean dentist and things like that you can buy if you're in that profession. But the concepts are essentially the same, so I try to create this framework to know how to apply the concepts for anybody who would like to understand what is Lean and start to apply. And of course, it's very difficult to apply by yourself by just reading a book. We all know that, so this is why you need some of the great Lean coaches who are in this room. So because this is unreadable, you will have at the end, you will have a QR code to have the link to my PhD for those who have not looked at it, so you can have 250 pages of more detailed explanation. But for today, I will zoom on a few parts of this, if you consider this a map, on a few parts of this map, and explain what are those concepts, and then show you how we applied or try to apply to our IT environment. So simple way, you have maybe noticed there were 9 concepts highlighted. So that took me a lot of time to know which one are the top concepts. If you create an ontology, you need to know what's your top concept. and then to organize them. And the logic here, of course, you have all seen many houses of TPS, so I didn't want to do yet another version of the house just to say it's different, because I need to have something different. But I kept some geographical positioning. So, for example, I have the 2 pillars, just in time and Jidoka, that we even called stop in time. So we can discuss about this terminology. So those two pillars are at the place where the pillars are. And fundamentals are at the bottom, like safety, continuous improvement, visualization, and making things, or monozukuri. And then what is related to people, stakeholders, we have put at the top. Customer first, stakeholder satisfaction, and make people, which is Hitozokuri. Yet another, so still I got some comments from my team, one is here, that this is still not modern enough. So we have done, well, he has done one more version, which looks like this, which uses some special manga tools. And you can see some interesting combination. The things are more or less in the same positioning, so you have something like pillars, you have something like the fundamentals and the top. But you can see that we have safety first and customer first. Sometimes I get the question, yeah, but what do you mean? What is really first? Is it safety or is it customer? Well, safety is first, is really first, because if we don't have safety for our employees, we don't start to make products for the customer. We just stop at that time. So chronologically, safety is first. But of course, when your factory is running, your sales operations is running, then the customer becomes first, and constantly you look at safety and you stop if you see any safety-related issue. Same thing on the right, make people make things. It's people, and now sometimes robots, that make things, but you need to have great people to make great things. So you cannot make great things if you don't coach and train and make people. Is a bit strange in English, of course, but this is exactly what the Japanese term Hitozokuri is saying. Yeah? So you make people first, and then they can make the great products or services of your company. And then you can find the other concepts, and you have again the 9 concepts, but in a more modern way. So, the LOF, I didn't say LOF is the lean organization framework, with the ambition to say this is a framework you can apply to virtually any human activity, including some private activities you may have. So it can be seen as a map. And today I will cover 4 journeys on this map, then with the practical examples in the IT organization that I lead. So the first journey is from customer first to Genchi Genbutsu. I feel that this one has been really very well covered today already during the day. So we say there's no way to put the customer first if you don't go to the customer. Go to the customer is what we call Genchi Genbutsu, which means the actual place, the actual thing. And if you have external customers, it means really go to your customers, see how they work, understand from them, talk to them, and so on. But of course, in a large company, you also have internal customers, so it's the same. You can achieve the same by rotating people between departments in the company, for example. And then you have a number. There are actually, Genchi Genbutsu are 2 gen. This character in Japanese, you can see that if you really want to look very knowledgeable about Toyota Way, you can learn the 10 gens. So there's much more that can be said about this, but no time today. Anyway, it's a key method to go and see and feel the problems exactly as the customers do, and then make sure you take action based on real facts. The second journey is from lean to Hitozokuri to challenge. So Hitozokuri, making people. So there we, as I said, developing great products or services. There's more and more services these days. Needs to develop great people. If you don't put enough time and focus on developing the people, well, you should not be surprised that the products themselves are not so good. But we always say we stretch the people, but not to kill them, so a bit. I mean, somebody who is already excellent should be stretched to be even more excellent, and somebody who started to be stretched to become average or good, and then better, but this small stretch should always happen. But frankly, the best way to do it is to have your people stretching themselves. So to say, okay, I had this objective, I achieved it, I think by myself I want to go to the next step. Or I have 30 incidents per month, but I want to go to 1. If it's the boss who says, we heard this morning, it's much less efficient than if it's the people themselves who think that this is the right thing to do. And maybe they don't know yet how they will achieve, but to set an ambitious target is what will help you think out of the box and come with great ideas. Third journey is Kaizen to problem solving. So I had some thoughts, because some people say the basis is standardization. Without standardization, you cannot do any Kaizen. That's true. So what is the key concept here? Well, I believe the key concept is Kaizen, because you don't standardize for the sake of it. Yeah? Otherwise, it would be a very boring, very long, and very difficult activity. The only reason why we standardize is that if you have a standard, you can improve your standard and you can demonstrate that it is better and then move to the improved standard. So this is why it is so important to spend the time to have a standard. There are so many cases in so many companies, and believe me, that also include my company, where there's no standard. If there's no standard, how can you say that you have improved? How can you demonstrate it? It's really difficult. And then you need to choose what you are doing, because indeed you could have thousands of Kaizens, but which one is the most important? Probably the one that will, support you to achieve the Hoshinkanri, being the vision that you have for the company. Of course, many small Kaizens can be applied and can be very good, but if you know where you are going as a company, you will Kaizen towards this goal. And of course, when you apply the problem solving in 8 steps that we have at Toyota, I think excellent process. Whenever we try to do differently, at the end we say, but why didn't we just follow our problem solving process? This is exactly what we should have done, and that always works, it seems. And this problem solving process in 8 steps the steps can be matched actually to P, D, C, and A. And the part called P, planning, is actually 5 of the 8 steps. So this is a lot of the problem-solving process. And then, of course, at the end, you do the Hansei, or the reflection, which is, again, in our Western societies, you know, when your son or your daughter did something bad, you say, did you think about it? What is your reflection? We do that as parents, but when we are in the company, we say, no, we are grown up. Reflection, that's not for me at my age. But actually, it's only by reflecting on what you have done wrong or that you can improve by yourself. So this is why reflection is something that should never be forgotten. 4th journey, the view from Jidoka to just-in-time, meaning that you have those 2 pillars at the 2 ends of the ontology. And I like to remind people of the history of those 2 terms. So the first one that came to Toyota is not the just-in-time, it's the Jidoka. And the Jidoka is a concept that was implemented by Sakichi Toyoda, the founder of Toyota, I would say, because he didn't found a company making automobiles. He founded a company making looms and automatic looms. And what we had with the looms is that when the loom had a problem, you needed to have somebody in front of the loom to see the problem and stop it manually, correct the problem, and restart. But now imagine you have 30 looms, you needed to have 30 people. What he invented is a device that stopped automatically the loom when there was a problem. And like that, one person could look after 30 machines. So imagine multiply productivity by 30. That was really a step change. And this was based on the fact that the machine stopped when there was a problem. So until today, this is one of the fundamental things you heard many times today, the undone and so on, all comes from that, is that if you have the courage to stop when there's a problem, it will be much easier to solve and to restart. But also you will have your attention drawn to the place where there is a problem. So the person who looks after 30 machines will see, oh, is that machine number 17 that has a problem? I will go and solve it. And all the other machines in that case can continue to work at the same time. So this came first. Now, of course, so the just-in-time means you have a flow and you never stop it. So you could say, yeah, but what are you doing? Because on one hand, you try to stop. On the other hand, you try to have your ideal flow that never stops. Of course, it's not a contradiction, because when you stop, it means you have a problem, but you need to solve this problem immediately, but also structurally, so that the flow can become more and more smooth. So now I went high level through those 4 journeys. I will talk a bit more about IT. Because sometimes here in the Lean IT or Lean Digital Summit, I get the comment at the end, you never talked about IT. So I will talk a bit about IT. But of course, those concepts apply to many other things than IT. So in the area of IT, if I go back to the first journey, customer first, Genchi Genbutsu, of course, like everybody else, we do Agile. We can discuss a lot. Should we call it Agile? Should we call it TPS for IT? Should we call it Lean IT? But anyway, we work with people, with suppliers who have heard all the concepts, Scrum and so on. So we decided not to spend too much time to argue about the words, but to do it. So definitely we use Agile to be customer first. But of course, it's not enough to say that and use any possible person and do the work well. Individuals are making the difference. They have to ensure that we bring value to the customer, that we involve correctly the end customer, and that we deliver a common vision. So we are guardians of good implementation of this by coaching. Then this image shows the layers that we have in creating a car, but don't worry, they don't look like that when they are finished. So this doesn't make a project easy. We have continuous delivery, which means that in the past, in a way, life was easy for the major part of the time for IT, because we got those requirements. We developed the system in our ivory tower for 1 year, 2 years. Then we brought back to the customer who said, no, that's not at all what I told you, or it's not what I need today. And we said, we really have bad customers or bad users in IT. So now we have to deliver every week, every day. So it's not something that is natural to everybody, of course. It's a constant pressure, but on the other hand, because you get constant feedback, you can at least have the satisfaction that your work is useful for the needs of your customers today. So it's another approach, closer to customer needs and more adapted to our world, because, of course, our world is changing much more quickly than before. So are all those changes normal? So it is actually sometimes hiding a lack of vision. I will take an example that involves myself. So I said, well, okay, it's good, we do many agile projects, so I will try to develop this e-Hoshin application myself using agile. So that means, of course, I don't have a lot of time available, so I will talk to an IT person who writes the program once in a while, and I will say, okay, I think we should do this. So the guy develops a small prototype. After 1 week, he comes back, say, well, this is nice, but actually now I see this, I think we should rather do this, or we should rather add that. So you can imagine that it's very easy if you work like this to be actually much more inefficient than before. So it means that as a customer, you also need to do your homework. This has not disappeared. Yeah? And what we see is that the customers who know best what they want, they also get better results with our agile projects. Yeah? The people who say, oh, agile is great, now we don't need to do the hard work. We just say something today, something else tomorrow, and something else the week after. Okay, there will be many streams. Then we will have, okay, we're at sprint 23, but we are not yet ready to deliver anything to production. Of course, on the other hand, it's also true that when you see something, it can give you new ideas. Yeah? So I don't want to say we should forget this. But we should not abuse, let's say, the facility that this gives you. So I summarize this by saying that Agile is doing the things right, but you still need to do the right things. This is why we still spend a lot of time to do what we call the Hoshin, but you can give it different names. But basically, what do you want to achieve as a company? How do you break that down for each part of your company? And we really ask the different functions in the company to understand by themselves what the company Hoshin means for them. So if our global CEO says we want to do better cars, this is an aspiration at his level, but of course the people in R&D need to interpret what better car can mean for them. And we need to know, oh, what does it mean from an IT point of view? And nobody's better placed than each person in the function to define what this means for them. And I do that also within IT, that each group should say, okay, for me, this Hoshin that we have means this. And that's why I want to have this bottom-up part in creating the Hoshin. If the members or the employees have been a part of this process to establish the Hoshin, then of course they will have more buy-in, and in the agile teams they will also be able to think about what is the reason why we want to achieve something. Then second journey, from lean to Hitozokuri to challenge. So this is an example, it's just one slide of a presentation that one of our graduates gave to us. It worked much better than I can do because it was herself who went to one of our factories for 6 weeks. And she came back and she said, now I understand the Toyota production system much better, and I'm really eager to apply it to IT. And really every time I have the same conclusion when somebody comes back from a factory that's still in IT, we have a lot of work to do to get to that level. In the factories, we really send young graduates. Somebody said we want to get them to work as soon as possible. But frankly, we have these 6 weeks when we send them to a factory to do the work of a worker at the line. And this, first of all, helps our people to respect the people who build our cars and who do a very hard job to do this, but also to learn the principles of TPS. And there are things like Kaizen, you work only on a small part, but even as a graduate who starts the first day, you can start to make proposal. And they see that, it's not a story, it's really true that if you're a worker at the assembly line, or this one was in a paint shop, you can really stop the line, you can really call for help, and there's really somebody coming very quickly to help you. And you learn all those things. Then when they come back, they say, well, we don't see why it wouldn't happen in IT. Of course, we have to define sometimes what it means exactly, undone in IT, what is the takt time, and so on. Some of these things are less obvious. But when people have understood this, at least it's much easier to explain those things. So they see very detailed standardized procedures, job element sheets. They have the training, they have the daily meetings. So some of the artifacts of Scrum, for example, they see them happening at the assembly line like it has done for many years at Toyota. And of course, you have people proposing Kaizen, they can get Kaizen awards and so on. And you have immediate communication, which frankly in IT is not always what works the most. So this is also something to learn from. And by the way, they don't only do day shift, they also see what it is to do night shift and the impact it has on you and so on. So very interesting. Then sometimes I get the question also, yeah, but lean is something of the past. Are you really innovating? Well, if you set yourself a very challenging target that you want to improve a KPI by a factor 100, you cannot do if you don't innovate. Yeah? So we have to give our people time to innovate. Of course, sometimes it's easy as management to say, hey, you can work a bit during overtime or weekends. But if we want to be really serious about it, we need also to allow employees to work on innovation at work. Every year we have an IT innovation fair where the employees of IT can demonstrate what they have improved, and the innovations can be very small things. It can be in sales, in manufacturing, in R&D. It can be in any domain. But we choose the best ones, and we show them not only to IT, we show them to the whole company and to people who come from our affiliates. And we do a nice video at the end. And we want to empower more the teams to run effective experimentations at work. The difficulty in a company like Toyota is we really always want to have perfect quality, and we all know when you experiment, you're not at that level. So we need to create the space where experimentation can be done, fail fast and so on, and fail cheap is a good one. We also want to do this, and we are now doing this much more than before. And the third journey, Kaizen, problem solving. I just picked up one thing. I thought when we started to do Agile and Scrum and so on that I would get people storming into, I cannot even say my office because my office is together with everybody else, but would come to me and say, Pierre, we have an impediment, you absolutely have to help us remove this. And I felt, this does not happen enough. And then once in a while, people said, yeah, we have this impediment. I said, why did you never talk to me about it? I'm not saying that my life would be easier if they would be in front of me every day saying you have to solve this because we believe it's only at your level that you can solve it. But if it doesn't happen enough, for me, it's also a sign that it's not perfectly working. So I'm telling the teams, please challenge the management enough. Your direct management, the management of your management, we still have some hierarchical levels, so please do this. And then the question is also, what works best as visuals for management? Because indeed, I also like to work and see Kanban boards with some old-fashioned paper on it where I can immediately see what the status is. Of course, like most of you, we use Jira and so on, so I could go to the system, but actually it would take me some time that I don't always have between my 16 meetings per day. So how to create a visualization that doesn't take too much time for the team and that is also useful for them to explain their impediments to management. And of course, we are on multiple locations, so we have this issue that if we do something too physical, the other locations don't get it, and we have then to have some duplication between the IT-based follow-up of issues and the visual board. So this, again, we don't have yet a perfect solution to this. Another thing is that is something called Horenso. That's actually an acronym in Japanese. It also means spinach, but that has nothing to do, it's just to remember it. And the Horenso is the fact that some top managers don't have time anymore. I heard it also today from others. They don't have time anymore to go to the Gemba to see what happens, to go to each customer. And the Horenso is how to bring them the information anyway from people who can have a bit more time to do that. So there's a way in Japan to do this so that the top managers, of course, once in a while they still go to customers and so on, but that people can bring them the information they need to make fact-based decisions. And I guess also on velocity, there may be many discussions in your companies. Each team has maybe a slightly different way of calculating their velocity. Of course, I agree that the important thing is that each team will improve. But in my role, at some point, I also need to explain to other top managers that doing Agile is actually better. So to have some way to aggregate and to demonstrate, like Jeff Sutherland says, twice the work in half the time. You can say it, but how do you demonstrate it? Yeah? Because there's always more to do, so in the end, there's always a lot in the backlog that is not done yet. So how can you demonstrate that you are going much faster and much better than before? But anyway, you have this obvious intuitive feeling that if we do the thing that add the most value first and we deliver to production and we didn't do before, it can be only better. And then the fourth journey, finally, continuous flow and continuous quality checking. So here, of course, in IT, it means DevOps. So if you want to deliver value to your customers very often and with good quality, you have no other way than to automate your testing, to automate your deployment, and to remove as much as possible of the manual work. At the same time, is the tension I explained before between Jidoka and just-in-time. Yes, you want to deliver just-in-time, but you don't want to kill your whole application. For example, if you're a bank or if you're an automotive company. Of course, if you have a way to roll back in hundredths of a second, maybe you can try that a bit, but you need to be really sure that you can roll back quickly. So we have still to check that every change is a good change, function, performance, maintainability, and security. But there are many things that we can automate that were not automated before. So what we do now is we have many technologies, we have many legacy systems. So DevOps is not as easy to implement in every single environment. So we have taken a number of different technological environments in our company. And we have a scorecard. It is blurred on purpose, I'm sorry. But we have a detailed scorecard for each of the things we need to do, configuration, testing, and so on, saying are the tools we have good enough to do this. If it's green, it's okay. If it's yellow or red, we still have work to do. And gradually, we make DevOps possible for all our environments, which in turn will allow us to devote our human talents for quality and maximum value. So, to conclude, learning, doing, sharing, and coaching. You see that for many years we were trying to do better cars. We have sometimes new cars that remind us of older cars, for the car freaks amongst you. But now we are transforming the company. It's not the first time. We have transformed from an automatic loom company to an automotive company. This time we are transforming to a mobility company. What you see here is a concept called e-palette that will come in the coming years, and that is supporting flexibility in many different mobility services. We will have a big part of our turnover that will come from services in the coming years and not anymore from selling cars. Selling cars will decrease. We invest a lot in new mobility services, and we need different skills, and we need to be agile as a company. And of course, as IT, we are even more core of the business in this new world, so we need to be agile as well and support the company based on the strong foundations of Toyota Production Systems and Lean. Thank you.